Okay everyone, let's continue the chat as we continue to build ahead to Saturday's blockbuster top of the table clash against Aberdeen. We've got some quotes from Brendan Rodgers, more international chat, yes, and a few other wee things as well, so let's do it. In terms of our international stars that were in action last night, we had Kasper Schmeichel, who played the entire game as Denmark drew 2-2, a wee Desmond away to Switzerland. Watch the highlights, that's the length of the research I'm prepared to put in here. I can confirm he was faultless, I would say, for the two Switzerland goals. Nothing he could really have done about them. The first one was like a close range shot fired into the roof of the net. He kind of did a bit of a strange thing when the goal went in, Schmeichel, that he kind of went after the ball even though it was already in the net. I don't know if he was just trying to get play restarted or whatever. Second goal was a penalty for Switzerland as well. He dived the right way but couldn't get anything on the ball to save it. So that was Kasper Schmeichel. No injuries, obviously. Bad luck if your keeper's getting injured in international duty. Thankfully that hasn't been the case. Anthony Ralston, also no injury. He played 89 minutes of Scotland's draw with Portugal. I again didn't see the match. Again, I've watched the highlights. He did have one really good defensive header in the first half. Ralston, the ball was kind of floated to the back post. Looked like it could have been a goal. I think John Souttar was out of position. Terrible. And the Celtic player bailed him out for his country. But it did look like a goal at the back post and Ralston did very well to clear it. Equally a not so good moment in the second half for Ralston when he was rinsed, let's just say, by Rafael Leao coming in and out. Ended up not looking the best as he was skinned, Ralston, but it didn't come to anything. Obviously he can count that as a clean sheet for Scotland. In terms of Scotland, I don't know, you maybe care more than me. Maybe you weren't scarred in the same way that I was in the summer, but I'm not really interested in Scotland right now. I've not watched any of the games since the Euros live, and it just seems like they've been kind of playing all right, but a 0-0 draw with Portugal, I guess that's a positive result, but you're just lacking any real belief. I think it seems like under Steve Clarke that's the limit of our expectations, trying to fluke a 0-0 draw against top teams. Maybe the international break's just getting to me. I don't know. Bring Celtic back, please. We're not doing that chat today. As I say, a clean sheet for Scotland and Ralston against Fernandes, Jota, not that one, Ronaldo and co. I did actually see after the game Ronaldo was having one of his typical rants, and Ralston walked over to kind of shake his hand after the game, and Ronaldo did it, but he didn't look particularly happy at that stage, so I enjoyed that. Switching to the other side of the world, kind of, Reo Hatate didn't feature again for Japan last night. Neither did Daisen Maeda. They were both unused subs as Japan maybe surprisingly drew 1-1 with Australia in Saitama. So it's another tough international break for Reo Hatate, where he's jetted from Scotland to the other side of the world and hasn't played a single minute of international football. That's been 2 in a row now. So it may need another pep talk from Brendan Rodgers on his return. Tough for Reo Hatate. I guess the difficult part is that he's part of such a strong team that up until last night were winning virtually every match they played. As I say, Maeda didn't feature last night at all. That's not bad news for Celtic. Just hopefully both of them can come back as soon as possible. They're probably flying round about now, actually. I don't know why I'm looking up to the sky. It's not going to be over Australia, but hopefully get back to Scotland as soon as possible and ready to go this weekend. Potentially both of them will start against Aberdeen. Finally, in terms of no minutes, the same may go for Austin Trusty. Not 100% sure though. His USA side are facing Mexico, and the game hasn't happened yet at the point of me recording. Kickoff is about 50 minutes away, so you can check for yourself when you get up whether Trusty featured or not. I'm guessing he probably won't. Will he feature on Saturday though? Well, we did have Brendan Rodgers speaking yesterday with Haley the Huddle Hound behind him. He spoke a bit about Saturday's game. He praised Aberdeen. He praised their manager Jimmy Tilleen for the work he's done so far. Obviously done incredible work. They've won every game so far. He also said that he's had a chance to watch Aberdeen over the international break, watch a number of their matches, and has been quite impressed with them. In terms of the international break, he just explained the situation for the players that were left at Lennoxtown. He said, the players who stayed had a chance to recover. We played in Sligo midweek, which was a great exercise for us. After that, some of the players got a bit of breathing space to rest and recharge for the next batch of games. They've been back in training since Monday and we're preparing for the weekend. Recovery is as important as training hard, and while the international players are away, we'll get them back as soon as possible, recover them and be ready to go again for the busy schedule ahead. So we know that, take Kyogo for example. He didn't even feature in the Sligo game, so he was given I think the full week off, and then has been back in since Monday preparing for Aberdeen. And I think the guys who played in the Sligo game were then given time off after that. I know Lewis Palma was at Hampden last night for Scotland-Portugal, which is maybe slightly strange, but I guess also not if he's literally in the city. And he strikes me as a big Cristiano Ronaldo fan, Lewis Palma. I don't know what that says about him. But he was at Hampden, so yep, all well and good, players recovering, and hopefully we're ready just to go back into things on Saturday and really kind of put that Dortmund game to the back of our minds. It really should be at this stage. Listen, it's happened, it's all about what we do from this point, and it's still been a really strong start to the season. A lot of games coming up as well, as we touched on yesterday. Brendan Rodgers saying there's definitely more football crammed into shorter time frames. I think football is heading towards becoming a 12-month sport. Players may not only get rest in the summer, but at different points throughout the year. There are more games and higher demands on players. They love playing, but we want to maintain quality in every match. We'll continue to prepare the players as best we can, motivating and inspiring them to perform well. And so far, they've done a fantastic job. As I said yesterday, we're now heading into a pretty hectic period. It's going to be weekend, midweek, weekend for the next 3 and a bit weeks. 7 matches in 23 days. We'll then go into another international break, the final one for a good few months. And we'll then be weekend, midweek, weekend for like over 3 months, 3.5 months. It's going to be a crazy period. And yeah, I think when Rodgers is talking about potentially resting players throughout the season, that might be what we have to see going forward, just generally. Maybe so with the very, very top players who are playing in this new Club World Cup that I don't expect us to be a part of anytime soon. That's starting next summer, and it's basically, if you don't know, it's like a 32 team, basically a mirror image of the FIFA World Cup, the countries World Cup, and it's like a club version of that. So there's going to be like 10 odd teams from Europe and 7 or 8 from South America, and all the various different confederations are going to supply teams, and it's going to be interesting to see how seriously the European teams take it when there's been so much chat about clubs playing too much football. I guess that's maybe less pertinent for us, although we will have European qualifiers next season, which is something we haven't had for a number of years. So the matches are going to go up next year, regardless of whether we're in the Champions League or Europa League. So it may be a case of having to rest players throughout the season, and we're going to need a pretty strong squad. Seems like we've got a pretty strong squad, but I guess that statement will have to stand the test of time. In terms of the injury stuff and looking into Saturday's game, there are question marks over Cameron Carter-Vickers, obviously Greg Taylor and James Forrest as well. Forrest is the one we don't know much about. He pulled out of the Scotland squad, I think before Scotland had even played a game, I think before the Croatia game. So has he picked something up in training? Quite possibly. Hopefully it's more of a precaution than anything else. In terms of the other two, the chat from the manager after the county win was that Carter-Vickers would be back in training during the international break and he would get a good week in before the Aberdeen game. So if we assume that there's been no hitches there, no setbacks for Carter-Vickers, he kind of should be good to go for Aberdeen on Saturday. He hasn't actually played since the win over Slovan Bratislava. So that's been quite a while. He hasn't played, I think 5 or 6 matches that we've played without Carter-Vickers. I was a little bit surprised when I found that out yesterday. But hopefully he's going to be back for this weekend because he's such an important player for us, and hopefully not rushing him back for like Dortmund away or Ross County away or even the games prior to that, like we may have done in previous seasons. Hopefully that's done him some good and he can just be fit and really go on a run and just become that Cameron Carter-Vickers that we all know and love. Greg Taylor, he may not be back for this weekend, but not long after that was the word from the manager. It's a calf injury. He has kind of relaxed about that. I think Greg Taylor's obviously been really good this season. Alex Vai, I think, over the last couple of games, coming on at half-time away to Dortmund, and I think his performance against Ross County was pretty encouraging. So I'm content with Vai coming in and starting the game on Saturday. Alistair Johnson, bit of chat about him as well. He hasn't been away with Canada during this international break, so hopefully it's just a case of him rehabbing his injury. As was said, he played against Ross County, scored against Ross County, so no reason to suggest he won't be good to go this Saturday. I think we could be looking at something like this against Aberdeen. And I know the midfield will be a point of contention again with Hatate, Bernardo, possibly Luke McCowan in with a shout of starting the game there. That's probably a debate we can have later in the week. But just in terms of the rest of the team, hopefully Carter-Vickers is back. As I say, fair chance he is based on what the manager said prior to the break. Vai probably comes in at left back, or continues at left back. And generally, players who have been rested there in an attacking sense. McGregor didn't go away in international duty, obviously doesn't do that anymore. Hatate didn't play. Maida played half an hour. Engels played 10 minutes. Kuhn didn't go away, and Kyogo likewise. So the team should be pretty fresh and hopefully raring to go against Aberdeen. So we don't know that team for sure. One team that we do know is a less popular one. We do know it for sure. The match official team, the referee, has been announced for Saturday's game. It is Nick Walsh. He will be assisted by David Room and Dougie Potter. The VAR is Greg Aitken and assistant VAR is Jonathan Bell. And just generally counting down the days till Saturday, it's been a hell of a build up to this one. Brendan Rodgers spoke a bit yesterday in the Celtic TV interview about the role the fans are going to play, and I know that's the kind of stuff that gets trotted out before any medium to big game, but Saturday I think is going to be really interesting. It's not often you have such a hyped match, and I think it's going to be incredibly hyped over the next few days now that the Scotland stuff is done. BBC Radio Scotland, who, you know, have a fair amount of love for Aberdeen, it's fair to say, especially when they're playing well. They're probably going to have daily discussions on whether Aberdeen can win the league and all of that stuff. And yeah, hopefully it's just a case of Celtic bursting that bubble on Saturday. Maybe a little bit like Borussia Dortmund did with us. Remember the hype and the excitement and the confidence we went into that Dortmund game with? I'm guessing Aberdeen are going to be similar. It's going to be a very similar feeling for them. They're going to have fans tipping them and feeling they can come to Celtic Park and win. And I'll be speaking to my pal Ryan, who's a big Aberdeen fan, tomorrow as well, just to find out more about Aberdeen, because I don't know about you, but I feel like I don't think I've watched a single full Aberdeen match this season. I've seen some highlights, but I'm not really sure about the way they play and how the manager sets the team up and what players are shining for them this season, because there's obviously something going right up there. So we'll do that tomorrow. But yeah, just generally hoping that Celtic are going to rise to this on Saturday and really get us feeling good again ahead of some even bigger challenges to come, namely Atalanta and Leipzig during this next period. So, yep, it's all good. Much appreciated you sticking with the channel during the international break, as I always say. We'll continue the chat tomorrow. John will be on Friday as well. And then we'll have Stevie back after the game on Saturday. He's currently enjoying a wee bit of time off. That sounded really sinister. Yeah, he's just away on holiday at the moment, Stevie. Yeah. Speak to you tomorrow.